Hello again, and glad to have you join us. I'm Michael Nath. We'll begin business now from Russia, looking at the impacts of the ongoing crisis on the state of the economy and business activities across the globe. Global stocks clung to their gains for the week on Friday, but a cocktail of rising interest rates, high oil prices, and no end to war in Ukraine kept alert on the rebound as yields sent a warning signal for the economy. The MSCI World Stock Index was flat at 695 points, up 5.4% for the week, but well below its lifetime high of 761.21 from January 4. And in Europe, the stocks index of 600 leading companies was little changed at 450 points. That's 9% below its lifetime high from early January. There is some relief that the U.S. Federal Reserve on Wednesday finally emerged on its series of interest rate hikes. And from there, it was a question of watching how the economy evolves and how high inflation goes before speaking. In Asia, MSCI's broad-based index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan was down 0.15%, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng steadied following a furious two-day surge. Japan's Nikkei rose 0.6%. S&P 500 futures eased 0.55% with little in the way of major data ahead of Wall Street's opening bell. Norway believes the country will receive around 30,000 Ukrainian refugees this year, but is preparing for a situation in which up to 100,000 may arrive as more people flee the Russian invasion. Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre told Parliament on Friday some 3.2 million people have fled Ukraine in the last 3 weeks, almost all to Poland and other neighboring countries. United Nations data shows around 2,000 have so far arrived in Norway. Japan will impose sanctions on 15 Russian individuals and 9 organizations, it said on Friday, among them defense officials and the state-owned arms exporter. The sanctions, which include the freezing of assets and Japan's latest measures since Russia's invasion of Ukraine that began on February the 24th. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Maria Zakharova and several makers of military equipment such as United Aircraft Corps, which manufactures fighter jets, are among those sanctioned in Friday's measures. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will address Japan's parliament next week, and said former Minister Taro Kono, who now heads public relations for Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party. 3 weeks after the war between Russia and Ukraine began, the federal government says it is working on a new trade policy with nations under the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, with whom it shares important mutual trade relations. The policy is meant to immune the Nigerian economy from the numerous sanctions from Western countries currently strangling Russia. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Niyi Adebayo, disclosed this to State House correspondents on Thursday in Abuja during the weekly interministerial briefing at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. According to Adebayo, the trade policy will be subjected to thorough considerations before being presented to the President Muhammadu Buhari and finally to the public. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Federal Ministry of Mines and Steel Development have called on stakeholders and financial institutions to channel more investments into the country's mining sector in order to realize Nigeria's non-oil economic potential and bolster the nation's export capacity. The Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Olamilekan Adebute, who spoke at the Mining and Solid Minerals Conference in Lagos on Thursday, said the mining sector had been neglected in the conversation regarding the need to reduce Nigeria's dependence on oil and gas. He said, quote, "The whole essence is to explore funding on this sector and to tell people of the possibility of what the sector can bring to the table. Unfortunately, it seems we do not have the total value. CBN has spent several hundreds of billions of naira every year in agriculture, end of quote. Now, the Debt Management Office on Thursday said Nigeria's total public debt stock increased to 39.56 naira in 2021 from 32.92 trillion naira in 2022. The Director General DMO, Patience Oniha, said this at a media briefing in Abuja. According to her, the total debt includes new borrowings by the federal government and sub-nationals. She also said that the amount helped in financing the budget deficit, capital projects, and support economic recovery. Oniha said, quote, Nigeria's total public debt as at December 2021 was 39.56 trillion naira, or $95.78 billion, as the amount represents the total external and domestic debts of the federal government of Nigeria, 36 state governments, and the Federal Capital Territory. She further said despite the debt increase, the country still within the total public debt stock to the gross domestic product limit of 55% set by the World Bank and 70% set by the Economic Community of West African States. Now, Nigeria's billionaire businessman, economist, and philanthropist Tony Elumelu on Thursday argued that the reason why Nigeria had been unable to meet its oil production quota as approved by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries was not because of low investment, but theft. Elumelu's position is contrary to the views expressed by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Temi Silva, who had attributed Nigeria's inability to meet its oil production quota to low investments. Nigeria's oil production quota, as approved by OPEC, is pegged at about 1.8 million barrels per day, but in the last few years, the country has struggled between 1.3 and 1.4 million barrels per day. Early this month, Silva said Nigeria's inability to meet the oil production quota was due to lack of investments in the oil and gas sector. He said the lack of investments was due to the recent spate of exits by international oil companies such as Shell and ExxonMobil from Nigeria's oil and gas sector. In the meantime, airline operators have hinted that another spike may await domestic air fares in the face of current realities in the fuel supply chain. The carriers under the aegis of Airline Operators of Nigeria said they might be constrained to sell at 120,000 naira per one-way economy class, with the aviation fuel selling at 500 million naira or million liters, and with the government's intervention. The airlines that recently bargained 500 naira per liter benchmark with the stakeholders said another rise in price became imperative to cover the cost of operations. The airlines this week raised another alarm over a massive spike at the price of aviation fuel that sold for an average of 650 naira per liter at some airports nationwide. The operators said the unbearable spike and attendant disruption have made efficient air transport and affordable airfares unsustainable. Following an emergency meeting at the behest of the National Assembly, the operators, aviation fuel marketers, the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, and other stakeholders agreed on an interim price of 500 naira for aviation fuel. The price runs for 3 days, pending the determination of a substantive price.